me go over
All
there
right,
and
and
hit
we're
the
live
thumb
now.
up.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Thank you guys for being here this morning. I know this is kind of like an unusually early stream for me. We don't normally go this early, but this, like I said, one of the advantages of not having a set date or time is that it allows me to adjust to people's availability, and this just happens to coincide for Koro and myself to be able to come together. How you been, Coral?
I'm doing pretty well. It's been, the holidays can be pretty rough, but this season has gone relatively smoothly. So,
Yeah, okay. Do you have family there in the Portland area, or?
yeah, so my immediate family is, I mean, when I say immediate, I mean what most people describe as extended. Um, like my grandparents and cousins all live within 50 miles of here, I'd say.
Okay.
Um, and then my great grandparents and all of their associated live down in Klamath, which is like southern eastern Oregon, central ish,
Yeah.
over by Crater Lake.
Okay.
Um, and there's a lot of them, dude. I don't know any of them.
So, what made you move to this area?
Um, they moved. So my grandpa actually has kind of a similar story from what I've heard you kind of talk about how you've moved around for work and things a little bit.
Yeah.
But my grandpa went to OIT because that's in Klamath Falls.
Okay.
And then at some point he got his ass in gear and actually started making good grades and got on the dean's list and whatever else because he realized that he was like pissing away money and not going to get anywhere with this education. And I wish I had done that because I dropped out of college. But he got scooped up by Honeywell out of,
Oh, okay.
and that was in, had to have been 1960 something because my dad wasn't born yet and he was born in 73 in Arizona. And so
Oh,
they
okay.
moved down to Arizona and my dad was born in Mesa, I think it was.
Okay. Yeah.
Um,
East
but they lived
Phoenix.
down there for a while and then they moved back up here um, because Rhonda's family, my grandma's family, was like in poor health. And they've been up here ever since. And I've just never, I grew up like 9 miles away.
Oh, okay. So you've always lived in that area?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I've always lived where I've lived. But I'm lucky, if I could be stuck in Klamath Falls.
The only reason I know that area is because uh when I was younger, I was doing an internship for the Bureau of Land Management, and I
Yeah.
guess they have a BLM office up in that area. And like I was telling you earlier, I know I had to go for some training, and it was like a new internship program that the Bureau of Land Management was doing. So there must have been like 12 of us that were interns that we had to go, and they were like, it's like the welcoming to the internship and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I can't remember, and it's got a common name. It was in Portland, but I think it shares a similar name with another big city in the East Coast. I would have to look at the map and try to remember, but this is so many years ago because I was only
Yeah.
like 20 something at the time. So it had to be over 30 years ago. And okay,
Yeah.
I want to watch. So okay. Rico's telling us that we don't have to, because I know he goes in an hour. Well, an hour for me, but he's telling me that we can go as long as we want.
It's an hour for everyone.
Mm. Hmm.
Time zones don't work quite like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I don't know. Hey, I'm still my first cup of coffee. Cut me some slack, all right?
It's okay. I had to grab the extra big one today.
Yeah, I broke my big one. I had a I had well, the one that I used to have in here that says you overthink things,
This one's broken.
and it was my favorite cup.
right in the handle.
Yeah,
It
the handle.
flexes.
And I would always, be careful where I would leave it and stuff. And just the other day, um, when we first started up the fire pit for the season, my wife and I were sitting out there, and I left it sitting on a table, and my dog went and knocked it over.
Oh,
And
for some
because I
reason,
didn't
when
take
you
it
said
in.
fire pit, I heard wood stove in my head. And I
Well,
was like, you had
yeah.
it sitting on the wood stove and it got too hot?
Yeah, no. Well, wood stoves. I know about wood stoves because I lived in northern Nevada, up in
Yeah.
Winnemucca for when I was with the BLM, and that was the first time I encountered wood stoves. I had no idea that was a thing, and them suckers get hot.
Yeah, they do.
Though I couldn't. I never understood how they could heat up a whole house, but them suckers, once you get them going, they're pretty good. But well, anyways, before we get going a little bit more, let me get some hellos out of the way because there's been quite a people here with us. Let's see who was here first. It looks like Sam. Huawei, thank you so much. He was the first one, and he made sure that I noticed that. Jimmy P, thank you for joining us today. Lando, thanks for being here. Inside Outside Aquatics, Kyle, thank you so much. Let's see, and then it goes to Danny Aquatics. Thank you, sir. Danny, do you have an email on your account? Because I'd like to get a hold of you. If not, is there a way you can drop it on the comments and I'll pick it up? Brian, Peplin Creek Aquatics, thank you so much. Tommy, thank you for being here. Red Laser, thank you so much. Amisa, thank you for joining us this morning. Let's see. David, gracias por estar aquí. Jeff Kane, thank you so much, sir. MC, thank you for joining us. Rico, how you doing, Rico? Thanks for being here this morning. Let's see. Jay, the Nano Aquarium guy, thank you for joining us. Skipper must be off because he's lurking. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us. And Charles, how you been? Buenos dias, Charles. And Drew, hey, Fishy Biz. Let's see.
Victor's in here. Victor Coco.
I cut him no slack. He said not to cut you any slack. Aquatic Moose, Victor Coco, Sarah. So thank you so much for being here. And let's see.
Don't cut him no slack, Koro.
Yeah. Gabriel, thanks for joining us this morning. I know Gabriel's at work. Rachel, thank you for being here. And I see Victor. Linda, thank you so much for joining us this morning. And I think that's let me see. That's pretty much everybody. Linky, thank you much for joining us today here. And yeah. And we're cut up to that point. And then again, thank you everybody for being here. And thanks to Vibes for sending over whoever he sent over after his stream. Or is he still going?
I think let's go find out. Let's go. Where's Vibes? I didn't see Vibes in the chat. Looks like he's still live. Let's go.
Oh, you see, Drew said not to cut me any slack.
Yeah, he said don't cut him any slack, Koro. I don't know what.
Yeah,
but you see yourself in the camera.
Anyways, we were kind of talking a little bit before we came on, how you ended up in Portland, but it turns out that you were born and raised there. And
sorry.
No, that's fine. Because I've always been curious. Because I've never really. I know you're from that area, and I know you've gone to some of the meetings up there and stuff like that. But you and I have never really had an opportunity to speak. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on. The other reason is because you and I are kind of similar when it comes to sense of humor, and I've kind of connected with you on that aspect.
Yeah, you also, me up, bro.
The other thing is there's a lot of things that I see you do in your fish room that are kind of I guess we're a lot more similar in a lot of ways than people might realize. The only difference is you're like 30 years younger than I am.
Yeah, for being a couple decades apart, and almost opposite sides of the country.
So when was there is the hobby always been a part of your life, or is this something that's relatively recent? Or
So I've always liked critters and stuff. I had a hermit crab when I was younger, and then we found I used that same hermit crab enclosure and tried to adapt it when we found I committed crime. I didn't know this at the time, but we found a salamander at my grandparents' house in their driveway, and we brought it home. And that's a big no-no in the state of Oregon. That is a big not okay thing, because those salamanders are not the most prolific of breeders, and their newts and things are not very they're really easy for a bird to eat.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. They don't have any armor. They don't have any scales. Salamanders are real sensitive critters. And to pollution and everything else. So they're even more heavily protected than a lot of our fisheries are. So that's something that, as I've gotten older, I've been like, well, that was, not only did I not take proper care of that animal, but I also did X, Y, and Z wrong by removing it from its environment and not doing any research ahead of time in this and this. And sure, I was a little kid.
Yeah, I was going to say,
but my parents knew better. And so I, that, and then at one point I got jealous because my sister was she got a betta for her birthday.
Yeah.
All the setup for it and everything. And she kept that guy alive for a couple years. Pretty well for a store-bought betta. But I got jealous or upset because I was I'd been wanting a fish for a long time, and we'd only had mice and like mammals, and this a hermit crab that my aunt got me that my mom didn't want in the house, right? And the salamander that I killed within a month, things like that I was we've never had, but we've only had pets that that are not mine, or that you guys don't want me to have. Can I have a fish? And they were you can have this fish bowl. Go ask the lady what you can put in it. And it was the cheapest fish bowl on the shelf, right? One of those little half-gallon. And I go up to this lady at the Petco in the fish section, and I'm like, what kind of fish can I put in this? Can I get one of the feeder goldfish or something really cheap? And she was like, you cannot put a goldfish in that bowl. It was honestly, you can't put any fish in that. They're not gonna you're never gonna have enough of a cycle or anything else. And she told me things that I didn't understand at the time, but basically was you can put this mystery snail in there.
Okay.
And she gave me a mystery snail, or at the time I think it was sold as an apple snail, but I'm not convinced it was what we currently call an apple snail in the hobby. But regardless, I kept that mystery snail alive for 5 years in a little bowl, and I never did a single water change.
Well, there probably wasn't a whole lot of bioload from that snail.
And all the bioload went into making algae that the snail ate. So it was fine.
So how old were you when this happened?
I was probably, I don't know, 12. I could have been older than that. I was probably younger than that because I don't think I was in middle school yet. But I don't remember. This was a long time ago. When I was 15, it was when I started my first aquaponics experiment. And that was with intent to start a setup, with intent to have fish, with intent to grow plants, and with research ahead of time.
So where do you get the idea for the aquaponics? What is it that you, was it something you guys were looking at in school, or how does a 15-year-old get interested in aquaponics?
I was kind of one of those zombie apocalypse prepper kids.
Okay.
Probably. I think that's probably where it came from, because before that I had a big zombie World War Z phase. I got into like reloading for a little bit. I'm really big on knowing how to cook your own food, and foraging and permaculture, like
Hmm.
setting up like a garden or your farm or whatever so that you can harvest crops year round from it, and they're not all the same crop, because then you're not ruined by a bad harvest, and you're not ruined if your grain silo gets a little like a leak in the roof or something like that.
So, what was your go-to to get all this information from? What resources were you using? Were you using YouTube or were you reading or?
So there was a bit of YouTube. I do. Oh, you'll love this, dude. I used to be a teacher's assistant for the library,
Okay.
and let me turn these lights on, anyways. And at some point, they were other camera. At some point, they were getting rid of this whole set of the let me pull one out of the middle. Popular Mechanics Do-It-Yourself Encyclopedia from 1979 or something like that.
Yeah.
And every single one has all your like thread pitches and everything, which is super cool. Oop. But it's also full of a million. It's like magazine excerpts and everything. And they were just gonna throw this in the dumpster. The whole, like, a boxed set. How to fiberglass your own boat. All the steps involved in that.
So you were pretty serious about being ready for the end of the world. That's cool.
I have
It's interesting because you don't normally see that happen with teenagers. That's, usually it's more people my age. When you start getting a little bit jaded and you start looking at what's going on around, around the world, that makes you kind of go, am I really ready if something happens or pops off? I guess Koro must have disconnected. We'll wait for him to come back. But yeah, that is definitely pretty interesting, especially for somebody so young to start thinking about stuff like that. Yeah, and the thing is, I know that connotation tends to when would I be in Aquashella in Dallas? Maybe 2024. I don't know. I do have family in the area. My wife and I have talked about um, possibly going. The only thing is, usually the Aquashella is around the same time that it's my grandkid's birthday. So we'll see. I think it was in May. Yeah, something like that. But I think this year it's going to be sometime in March. I have to go look at the dates, but if I ever go to Aquashella, Dallas is definitely the one that I'll be going to, just because it makes the most sense. I have family in the area, well, relatively area. I have family in San Antonio and Houston. So that kind of puts me in proximity where if I take a flight there, I could rent a car and drive up to Dallas, but that might be the only place. No, they were asking me when you got disconnected if I was going to Dallas for Aquashella, but I said I definitely probably, if I have to make an East Coast trip, the only place I'm going to the East Coast will be the Keystone Clash. I don't feel that Aquashella is worth the time or the investment to go all the way down there for that, because I'm not going to see the majority of the people that I want to see.
No, like, if you wanted to go to a trade show, there are better trade shows to go to than Aquashella too.
Yeah. Hold on, let me turn on my light. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I have mixed emotions. I would love to experience an Aquashella at least once, just to say been there, done that. But what I remember Aquashella being a few years ago, and what was the appeal to me, is the same reason why the Keystone Clash is now the appeal for me. because it was mostly to be able to see some of the people that you share screen with that are chats and stuff like that. Being part of the community.
Yeah.
That has always been the appeal for me to go to these events, is to be able to hang out with some of the people that you get to, kind of make a connection with, whether it's through chat or through sharing screen with somebody on a live stream. It's really nice to be able to have that in-person connection. And that was the main reason why I was really looking at doing one of those events. But within the last couple of years, there's been a lot of changes to that event, and it's kind of gone away from that, where now it's kind of like they only really invite the cool kids and that's it, and it's kind of like, I don't know. And what I've seen the Keystone Clash, what it's been becoming is exactly the reason why I wanted to go to Aquashella, which is to hang out with the community. And so that's where I'm kind of at with that. And to be honest, it gets expensive to try to, for me, because all these events I have to either fly or drive or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so it
And
it
that's
adds
not
up.
free.
Yeah, it adds up after a while. And I don't know if I could do that many. I'm not at a point right now where I could do multiple events in a year.
Well, and every time you leave your fish room for an extended stay, that's a risk.
I'm not worried about it. I've gotten to the point now where the way my aquariums are set up, I have no problem going away for a week or 2 weeks because I've already done it. I got
That's
over
good.
that fear. Nothing really major happened. And I know the fish can survive. You don't have to be, we as hobbyists are guilty of overfeeding our fish. It's,
Oh yeah.
we do that on a constant basis. But we have different objectives,
I
you're
mean,
trying to accomplish
just
different things.
forget fish. We as humans are guilty of overfeeding the animals and sometimes children
Ourselves.
that we bring into our care.
Just overfeeding ourselves, period. I mean,
Yeah.
as a society in general, we tend to overeat anyways.
Yeah, but I don't know. All you got to do is look at your uncle's lab and be like, that is a rotund fella. You know?
Yeah, and this is the other event that I'm really interested in is the Aquarium Nation Expo in Houston. And
Cool.
that one for me seems more of a reality. Like I just said, I do have friends and families in Houston. And so that might be more of a possibility to happen than necessarily Aquashella. So you stood up and turned off. No, the light's got it's a motion sensor light, and if I don't move or wave at it on a regular basis, it shuts off. But I intentionally have it set up that way because it's more of an ambient light. Or when I come in and everything else is off, and I walk into the fish room, I don't want to be tripping over stuff because it'll get pitch dark in here because everything's sealed off. And so that's the light that I use. But if I don't move, I think it's like 20 minutes or something like that, it'll kick off.
And if you notice, Jorge does not show the floor of his fish room ever, so there must be lots of trip hazards.
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of shit in the floor.
That's a fish room.
Yeah, it's unless I'm having somebody come over, I'll put stuff out of the way so they don't trip over. But I got buckets I have buckets with plants, buckets with infusoria. I have buckets with just water that I take out of the aquariums, and
I got a bucket with a fish that I can't catch in it. I don't know. Every time I reach in there with the net, the fish disappears.
Yeah. So I've got buckets everywhere. And if you have a fish room, you never realize how many buckets you have until you start, doing some cleaning and empty them out. I have a bunch of them. They're full with gravel, different grits or sizes of gravel.
Yeah.
Because I go out here to the desert and I'll just shovel sand into into a couple of buckets, and then once I get into the fish room, I'll sort it out. I'll run it through a series of sifters.
Yeah, okay. So you use like the hardware cloth.
Yeah, until I get it to the size that I want, and then I'll separate them. And I use them. All my aquariums, once I discovered that you could have anything in your aquarium, that this whole commercial industry that's forcing you to buy stuff is BS.
Yeah.
I quit doing that. I don't spend money. I don't spend a lot of money in my aquarium and my fish room. A lot of, if I can get stuff for free, I'm getting it for free.
Classifier, that's the word I was looking for. It's not, I was going to call them clarifiers. But if you're looking like, if you want to spend the money and you're limited on space and you need the what we're talking about, the different mesh sizes, prospecting classifiers are usually the right size for a 5-gallon bucket, and they're those like ugly green.
Yeah, I've seen them. Well,
They're
I'm
way overpriced.
I'm way cheaper than that. I have a it's basically like a screen that you put on your bucket when you're painting.
Mm-hmm.
Here, I'll show you.
Oh yeah, I've seen those. The paint sieves are pretty solid too.
So it's real easy. When I go out and I collect, what I'll do is I'll put this on top of whatever bucket that I'm using. And anything that doesn't fit through here, I usually discard because it's going to be too big to be used as substrate.
Yeah.
And I don't really discard it because here's what happens. I'll make a pile of all the, not the fines, but the rough stuff. And then from there I can collect hardscape.
Yeah,
I can go
ones.
Yeah. So this is the stuff that I do out in the field, and anything that goes through this sifter, I can put in a bucket because more than likely it's gonna eventually be used in one of my aquariums. And then once I come in here, I have like 2 different strainers that I got at the 99-cent store. I have one that's like it's got some medium size holes on it, and that kind of breaks it down a little bit more. And with that one, everything that doesn't go through there is usually what I'm going to use to finish off any hardscape. Like, you know how you set up stones and then you want to add the smaller pieces of rock in front of it, so it looks a little bit. So that's where I get everything that doesn't go through that first colander is what I use for that, because it's small enough. It's obviously smaller than this size of these holes, but it's a little bit bigger than what the colander's holes are. And what goes through that colander is usually what I use for substrate, because it's smaller than pea pebble but bigger than sand. So it provides the perfect size for it.
Like
now
3 to 5 mil or whatever.
Yeah, so somewhere in there. And then I have one that's just like a screen colander. And if I really want fines to be able to cap stuff, that's what I usually will use. And so that's how I separate all my stuff. And I even have a video where I was showing people how I do it when I was first getting started. And so I don't spend money on substrate. And this whole thing about rocks messing with your water parameters is a non-issue with me, because I have extremely hard water.
And you don't live like all your aquifers are already coming from limestone infested water. Same thing in Florida.
So I can see where you guys up there in the Pacific Northwest, where you guys have the softer water, that could become an issue, because I constantly hear people in that region complaining about having soft water and not being able to keep some of the hard water species, and that being an issue. Maybe there is something about rocks leaching out, minerals and stuff like that. But in mine, it's not going to happen. So I don't worry about it. Any rock that I find out of the desert, I'm putting it in my aquarium, whether it's quartz, crystals. I've never had any issues with that. And I know some people get all worked up about you having to test your rocks and all this. I tell them to go kick rocks. Because
if you're in a limestone area, I wouldn't necessarily put that in my tank, unless I was keeping a species that benefited from it. But outside of that, put it in a bucket and soak it for a week regardless before you put it in your tank, right? Because you want anything weird that's going to hatch in a bucket, not in your tank.
Yeah, so and again, but then I have the opposite problem, whereas it makes it harder for me to breed some of the saltwater fish that need that soft water to be able to get triggered. So
Yeah.
I can keep them and they do fine. It's just I can't get them to spawn. But that's it's just you give and take. I mean, I know I can do live bears, like nobody's business, because the water for us is suitable for that. I can do Africans if I wanted to do Africans,
Yeah.
because our water parameters are ideal for that. But again, that's why you kind of adjust your hobby to what suits you. I mean, why are you going to be fighting with the elements? Yeah, would I love to be able to breed apistogrammas? Hell yeah, but I know they need softer water, and I'm kind of set up for that because um, I think last year or almost 2 years ago now, we had to put in a whole water filtration system for the house, a water softener.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough that when they were going to do that and working out the contract, I asked the guy, I said, would it be possible that in the garage I get two spigots put in there? And one of them is just as soon as it goes through the carbon blocker, just
Oh, you've
to
got like a
remove the,
bypass, so that's not getting remineralized.
yeah. So that goes to that's straight water coming in from the street, and all it's doing is removing all the chlorine
Yeah.
from the water. So I said, I want to be able to tap into it immediately after that, because I want to be able to do water changes. And I don't want to have to be, you know, I said, all I needed, because before that, and Danny, I saw Danny do that in a video. I was using the RV carbon filters.
Yeah, they're like so they make RV carbon filters, but they make these ones you put on your hose for to pick up all the TDS, and that's actually a DI filter.
Yep.
It's the DI resin that's in there.
And I was using that to do water changes, because all we have is just chlorine in our water. I can
Yeah.
literally just if I if see, I don't like complicated stuff. I don't like working too much. So I could bypass all that if I just put water in a container, leave it overnight, and it gas off and be able to use it.
That's what I do
But
most of the
that
time.
requires me to have a pump and then put something on wheels and move it around. So I don't know. One day I was at Walmart and I saw these and I was kind of curious because I knew they were like little carbon filters. So I started reading the back on there and it said it removed like 90 some percent. And I said, you know what? 1%, 2% is not going to kill my fish of chlorine. It'll
No.
gas off by the time I fill up the aquarium and stuff. It'll all be gassed out of there. So it's going to be a non-issue. So I didn't even test it. I just went straight out, did it. Nothing happened. And I said, all right, this is this is going to be my new filtering system. So I used that for over a year, and I liked it because it would last. One of those cartridges for the amount of water I was using would almost last like 8 months.
Nice.
So I didn't have to buy any dechlorinator or any of that stuff anymore. So it made it real simple, and it was funny because once it became real simple, I was actually doing more water changes than I normally was before, because, but and subconsciously I was thinking, if I do 2 water changes in a week, that's this much dechlorinator that I'm using. So that means it's going to be this much money. You start doing the math, at least I do. And it kind of I would tend to prolong water changes unnecessarily. And once I got that filter, it was like, okay, it looks like this one could use a water change, and I would just do it. So that was one of the upsides. And then it just made it easy because all I'm doing is just running a hose from tank to tank. But that's enough of me. We're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. Look at you. You're getting all comfortable. You're not interviewing me.
I was just making sure we didn't have any questions in the chat.
Oh, I know. I'm horrible about that.
Well, that's hard. There's a lot because you got like a person in front of you with the eye contact.
The problem is this. I get distracted very, very, very easy. And if I'm not 100% focused on what you're saying, I'll lose what you're telling me because I'm hearing it, but I'm not listening. And there's a big difference. And I like to listen because then it allows me to either ask questions or follow up on something a point that you made. So when I do that, I tend not to look at the chat. And but then I feel like I'm neglecting the chat, but that's why I always try to tell them, look, I'm not trying to ignore you. It's just I'm trying to pay attention to what the guest is saying.
Yeah.
And I haven't been able to work that out. I multitask for stuff that doesn't require a lot of attention from me.
Yeah.
But if I really need to focus, I need to pay attention. But
Man, I was
okay.
on the phone with my dad while I was trying to make potatoes. I was like doing the scallop potatoes, chopping them. Like 2 days ago. I could not ask a relevant follow-up question to anything he told me.
Well,
He'd
you get
finish
caught.
talking and there'd be a silence for like 4 or 5 beats.
Well,
And
the
I'd be like,
worst,
oh
the
shit, I'm
most
supposed to say
embarrassing thing for me is
something.
that somebody will say, and do you agree with that? And I'll be like, ah, shit, what am I agreeing to? What do I say?
Yeah,
Because I was hearing them, but I wasn't listening, so I wasn't really. Yeah, it's not easy. That's why the reality of one of the reasons why I like having a co-host, like when I do the Saturday stream, is because then it becomes real easy for me. I let Steve do all the talking and asking questions, and then I can focus on the chat and I could do some other stuff, and it just makes it a
yeah.
lot easier
And say,
because then,
hey, we got a question from the readers.
yep, or I'll just pop it up there. Excuse me.
There's a new
But
caller
anyways,
on
getting
line
back to you.
4.
I'm not gonna. I know what you're doing, Coro. You're just like me. You're trying to avoid the
I'm
questions.
not giving you any slack, like Biz said.
Yeah. So at 15, you start getting this idea of of the world's gonna end, zombies,
Well, I mean, like it
apocalypse.
was before that I thought that the world was gonna
Okay.
end, but it was 15 is about when I started actively doing things beyond just downloading like PDF files and things like that. You know what I mean? Because part of me, I don't know, when I was younger, I was like, somebody gave me a big external hard drive, and I was like, what am I gonna do with all of this data, like space for data? What legitimately, what am I gonna do with it? You know, you can download all of Google Maps, you can download all of Wikipedia, you can download all of, and then you still got more room. What next? Right? And so I used to download a bunch of this like farming stuff and all of this whatever else, and I kind of discovered those like the fad of those tilapia IBC tote 55-gallon barrel type systems, which are not ideal for tilapia and also not necessarily ideal for aquaponics. But like if you're working with found or affordable materials, that's cool. Do what works for you and what you can get a hold of. And I understand the idea of trying to design like a pattern or a recipe for for you to follow, a little plan for somebody that uses a material like an IBC tow or a 55-gallon barrel that is available in any country in the world, in surplus, and we're gonna keep making more of them for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
I get that, and that is really admirable to like try and reuse in those ways. But if I was gonna build an aquaponics system, I don't think I would use them. Like that's cheap, and that's really the only reason you'd want to do it, is because it's one of the cheaper ways to do an aquaponics system. But
Now, I'm not too familiar. I mean, I've seen some of the stuff with it. The idea is that you can have a source where. What happened, B? Oh, okay. Sorry.
yeah, no, you're good. I can talk.
No. Yeah, it's just my wife's bringing the dog in.
No, you're
So I'm
good.
wondering what's going on.
So aquaponics is, yeah, like you're saying, it's the idea where you can have a source of, like, you've got your fish and they're a source of nitrogen for your plants.
Yeah.
And like the fish food also adds phosphorus and whatever else. And ideally you're going to have a source of food for yourself from the Oh, the boss came in. Yeah. You're going to have you're going to be growing lettuce or spinach or something. And you can supplement the fish feed with that, but you don't want to do that too much because there's not a closed loop. You can't just feed them food produced from their own waste constantly.
Yeah. But why the tilapia? Because you really need that much of a bio load to be able to create enough nitrogen for the
So
vegetables or
tilapia is one of the fish that I don't want to raise tilapia.
Hmm.
Tilapia is, at least when I was 15, tilapia was the poster child of aquaponics and
Okay.
farmed fish in general. And tilapia, even at that point in time, had a reputation for tasting muddy and not being and this because it's incredibly hardy
Mm-hmm.
and you can abuse the fuck out of that fish and leave it in dirty, muddy fish shit water. Sorry for the language,
Ah,
but
really? You're gonna apologize for that? Don't you
well, I
know
mean,
who
I
like?
see you on the Fish Plants Eat Moss channel, but
Yeah,
this,
I mean, I'm you know,
but you know what I mean. You can put tilapia in like the worst goldfish water that worse than a betta, and then you can serve that tilapia to people, and it's gonna taste muddy. Like, duh, it's gonna taste muddy. It's raised in the worst kind of farming. Like, do people really think that the beef that you get from McDonald's tastes the same as other as good beef?
wait, McDonald's serves beef?
But you know what I mean. Like remember when they did those Black Angus burgers and it was
Yeah.
like, oh, they're still factory farmed animals and they're gonna taste like factory farmed animals. I'm sorry. And maybe we don't want to eat animals at all, and that's fine too. I personally am of the opinion that we're never gonna change everybody's mind. And if I want to have a farm and I want to somehow exist in this world where we have to make everything monetarily viable, I should get in on the boutique, high quality, ethically or as ethically raised as you can get when you're intending to eat it animals, and so I want to raise channel catfish.
Hmm.
That's my goal, is channel catfish, but they take up a lot of space. You need a minimum of 2,000 gallons per catfish or something, if I remember right. They get
Okay.
big. But if you could supply a local restaurant with catfish year round and microgreens and whatever else year round, you could sustain a farm, monetarily speaking.
Yeah.
And you could also use that as we have a lot of learning gardens and things out here. Maybe not a lot. We have a few, and I think we need more. And one of the ones that's really cool is called the Jenkins Estate.
Okay.
And it's one of those places that some pioneer type came and built this big ass mansion and had all these crazy gardens and it's this huge property. And they've got some rose bushes there that are 140 years old.
No, wow.
It's cool. And at some point, so one of the people that owned this estate was the people who are going to inherit this estate are going to parcel it off and turn it into apartment complexes or something and sell it. And so they bequeathed it to either the state of Oregon or something. But now at this point, Tualatin Hills Parks and Rec owns it. And that's really cool because that means that the school system can do their learning gardens and things there, and they can I don't know. Learning gardens are I think really important, and having that outreach with our next generation. I don't intend on having kids, and so if I'm gonna do a farm or something like that, I feel like it's kind of important to use that resource and communicate, get the knowledge, and skills to the next generation. Because
Now, at these learning gardens, you can go in there and plant certain crops or stuff like that, or how does or they teach
um
you how to do that, or how does that work?
so learning gardens are not the same as like a community garden, so I can't
Okay,
like go get a plot or like a garden bed there, but I can
okay,
go get free seeds, and I can go get like a planting guide that tells me what months to plant what. And a lot of times they have little food banks there too. Like they'll have like a little thing with what do you call them? Like canned food and whatnot, a little like crate.
okay,
But they're usually big places where they have signs, and they'll have frequently guided lessons that are taught by either OSU, which is a university, like college level course, or sometimes they have them by the Parks and Rec officials. And that's every 3 months they have one of those usually. And then I think there's something on Saturdays. I don't remember. But there's usually a lot of different like courses and guided things you can go there, and there's always signs up in front of every garden bed talking about not just what's planted there, but why they're planted, like why what plants are planted together for companion planting and things, what times a year, what like everything about them. And it's not the same bullshit that you get when you're at Home Depot and you see every plant says partial sun.
okay.
um like I don't know. It's really interesting to go into a learning garden, and usually they're a kind of aesthetic. They'll be set up in like a meandering path or something,
Now,
not as
do they teach you about foraging, which plants you get are actually edible, and or
sometimes.
okay,
There's a permaculture farm that is a private business in Northeast Portland that has a little like they do a course on foraging, and there are a number of other like Portland has a really strong foraging community from what I understand,
uh-huh.
which things like that can be kind of insular. They're not always friendly to outsiders coming in, because there's only so much good stuff out there, and we don't want
Okay.
people trampling through our forests, like not knowing what they're looking for and stepping on it. And then you know what I mean.
Yeah.
If you're gonna forage with people, you should go out in a guided group. To be honest, like
Okay.
don't do that alone, and don't trust pictures.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I it's one of those. There is, well, I guess there could be some foraging out here because I know there are some cacti that
Oh yeah,
that are edible in a pinch and stuff like that, but there isn't a
I could
whole lot.
forage some Nepales from one of my neighbors.
Yeah, but nopales I recognize. I grew up eating nopales, so I can recognize those. But there are some other ones that I've seen on some of those survival channels and stuff like that. I'm always interested. It's always fascinating the stuff that's out there because you got to figure. I mean, we didn't have all this technology all the time.
Yeah,
There's been humans on this earth for a long time, and they were without a lot of the things that we have. So, and they managed to survive. So, there's a lot to be said that a lot of the things that we think are necessities are just things that make our life easier, but you can do without them really in a pinch. And to come down to a situation,
and
you're
even
gonna
like
if you know what you're doing.
there's a lot of stuff out there that is labeled inedible or is labeled, for example, non-venomous. That's one of my favorite ones is non-venomous because for a long time, non-venomous, and in most books and things, when we're talking about snakes and whatnot, it means not in a significant capacity to hurt humans. It doesn't mean they don't have venom glands. It doesn't mean they don't produce venom. It means that whatever venom they produce is not in a quantity or not in like the LD50 is not likely to hurt you. And for most people, that's probably good enough. But that doesn't mean that the snake is non-venomous.
Mhm.
If a snake's anticoagulant in its blood or in its venom doesn't operate on the anticoagulant or on the coagulants within mammal blood and operates on the coagulants within bird blood or reptile blood because that's what they prey on, they're still venomous. If Western explorers found a berry unpalatable, but it doesn't poison you and it provides calories, it's still edible. Even though Western explorers found it unpalatable and labeled it as inedible way back when. A lot of times you'll see stuff like that where it will be like, this plant is used for this and this. And also native tribes used it medicinally and in cuisine. And like, if they used it to flavor their food, that means it's edible, right?
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't like, sure, you can't just eat it. Or maybe eating it like that is not ideal. But that doesn't mean you label it as poisonous or inedible in your wilderness book.
Oh, my water system. I was like, where's that hissing noise coming from?
Oh no, there's dripping.
Yeah, no, it's just, I guess my, they must be using the washing machine because it kicked on, but I didn't know what it was. Yeah, it was water. I was like, where's water running from? That's the first reaction you have in a fish room is like, where is it going? Yeah, but yeah, it's just one of those things where, not that I'm going to go out and do it, but it's just interesting. I don't know. I like having a lot of, I wouldn't say useless because at one point it will become useful and it might just save your life if you know what you're doing.
Exactly. Those,
but
like, did you ever read Gary Paulson's Hatchet?
No, I don't read shit.
You don't read things? Oh, okay.
No, that's one of the downfalls and one of the regrets that I've always had is that I have not read as many books as I probably should have. But it's just one of those things. Yeah, I found that when I was in school, and if the class depended on me doing a lot of reading, I didn't do as well as if it was lecture and I had to take notes. When I had those type of teachers, I always excelled in those classrooms. It's when I had to independently learn and study that I don't know. I sit there and two things happen to me if I start reading and it's not super entertaining. Either that, I start reading and I want to go to sleep immediately, or I just lose interest and then I just get fed up and leave it there. So it's gotten better now that I've gotten older and I've had to do more reading for work. But it's always I see guys that can sit down and take a technical manual about this thick and just read through it. I've never been able to do that. And I've tried it. I have purposely tried to get myself to do it. I remember one time the challenge was over the summer. I was going to read the Bible from cover to cover.
Oh,
I never got through it. I think I just got through the book of Genesis.
My mom's not even. My mom raised us secular, and at some point she was like, "If you guys want to go to church, we'll take you, but I'm not going in with you." And I was like, "Why would I give up my Sundays?" But then she also made us read like I read a children's version of the Bible when I was really young, like the ones with pictures and stuff. And then she made me read the real, like the full up King James edition. And then she made me read the Torah. And then so I've read like 5 or 6 different religions. Like we did full up religious study, but it was weird. And I don't know, like, I'm not saying that I was taught lies or anything. I probably was. Everybody was. But I didn't retain any of it because it was, like you're saying, it was forced study and it wasn't fun. There was no entertainment involved. I like reading for entertainment. That's a whole nother thing. But yeah, dude, I wouldn't read the Bible again cover to cover if I, like, not because there's anything wrong with it. Just like, that's not going to put a sour taste in my mouth immediately.
Yeah. For me, it was more like trying to challenge myself to read something that I necessarily would want to read.
Yeah. I can
Sorry,
understand
I don't know
that.
what the hell's going on, but I got something in my throat. And but that was kind of like, I don't know. Must have been my junior year, going into my senior year, that I decided that I was going to try to do that, because I was really trying to improve my ability to be able to read stuff that I didn't find interesting, like historical stuff, which is crazy, because in high school I hated history, but now that I'm out of the institutional education system, history is one of the things that I really enjoy reading about, because it just goes to show that we're, as humans, are idiots, because we
Well, and it's
always go back
so,
and commit the same errors over and over and over.
yeah.
We don't learn.
I love finding out how different historical events are intertwined. You know, like weird things that happened at the same time period that we don't like, that you are probably like, well, yeah, obviously that happened at the same time period. I lived it.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Wait a minute. Fuck you. Did you just call me old?
yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, and the other thing is that you can now kind of start, like you said, piecing things together. You start reading about events that you don't learn about in school, and
no, dude.
That's the other thing with institutional history or education, is you're going to get the version that they want you to learn about,
Yeah.
and they never really talk about the dark side of that history.
One of my history teachers, and granted, this favorite history teacher, my high school history teacher, Mr. Bliss, was he was amazing. But there are a number of times that he stood in front of the class and was like, I cannot, as a representative of the Hillsborough School District and your public teacher, tell you that the FBI or CIA was involved in this, this, or this. You know, I can't tell you that they were involved in it. And then he would just stop talking.
Yeah, it's just,
And it's like, whoa, dude, you're kind of actually putting your job on the line here by making us question, like, even simple
but
stuff.
those are the
Like,
good
I knew
teachers.
MLK was messed up when I was really young. I knew that the FBI was involved in that and everything when I was really, really young. But he said that about the Kennedy assassination. Like my teacher said that about, like, and that's a whole nother thing. It's one thing for people to be like, oh, you know, that's fishy, or I don't know. It's one thing for people to be like that. It's another thing for your teacher to be like that.
Well, but you see, those are the teachers that you remember. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you always think, we see, because when you go through them in school, they make it seem like they're totally different eras.
Mm-hmm.
It's
well,
not.
And they say these numbers, but like, how am I supposed to remember what 1800 DCE is?
Yeah. Well, and
Like,
I don't think at that time you're necessarily really thinking about that. It's just kind of like, all right, yeah, this is a date I need to remember because it's going to be on a test or a quiz or something.
yeah.
And that's really it. You don't put one and two together. That kind of comes after a fact. Or, I remember when I used to watch TV, the History Channel was one of my favorite things to watch. But then you start discovering that some of the stuff you see on the History Channel is not necessarily the full version of how things really went down.
Yeah. Yeah,
But,
that's for sure.
It is what it is. Yeah. So, well, what I was getting at, the teachers that you always remember the most, at least in my case, are the ones that would make you question things, that they weren't this, it's this because of this, and that's the way it is because I said so. It's the ones that would challenge you to go around, really think about this. I mean,
or I've given you the tools to answer this problem already. Let's go through it. Like,
yeah. So those are the ones that I think that's why some of my most memorable teachers were going to be my math teachers, because they found a way to be able to make math interesting, because it was kind of like they would challenge you. They would give you the tools to begin with so that you could have them there and be able to solve some of these problems. But it's the way they taught you. It wasn't just, I don't know. I don't know if I can explain it, but those are the teachers, Mr. Orduñas and Dr. Ponce are the two math teachers that I had that just come to mind. And I never forget because I learned so much from them too, to the point where it made me realize I didn't hate math. What it was, I didn't understand math. And once they gave me that ability to understand it, then it was
Yeah.
probably one of my better subjects. But it was because of their ability to be able to teach. And that's really saying something because not all teachers are teachers. Not all teachers can teach is I guess really what I'm trying to say. A lot and those teachers are far and few between, unfortunately, the ones that are actually teaching you something.
Yeah.
And so but those two teachers have always stood out in my mind. Um the other teacher, but this is in college. I had a speech teacher um who really got me over the fear of public speaking. And I remember I took that course because it was a prerequisite, not a prerequisite, but it was one of those electives that you had to do. And the other elective, um, I forgot what it was, but I definitely didn't want to do it. That I'd rather confront my fears of public speaking and took that course. But the teacher was really cool because I guess he was an aspiring actor um, that had not really been able to land any big roles, but he was doing some side projects. But the way he would teach the course made it so that you didn't feel fearful of getting in front of a group and being able to speak. And
Yeah.
he was able to put that in a way where it made sense, and that that fear you could overcome. And I remember most of us were in the same boat when we were taking that class. You want to put a pin in? Oh wait, oh yeah. Let me do that. It's for let's see, pin message.
Oh, we got a bunch of retracted messages.
Oh, do we?
Yeah. What are
Oh,
they
GNC.
saying?
That's Gabriel. I don't know. He's probably being a smartass. That says you want to be up there. Oh, yeah. I've already asked Sam, but Sam's got to get over his fears of not being a good public speaker. I'm glad we're
Yeah.
talking about that. But anyways, going back to you, Coral. So you start doing the hydroponics. You start looking at doing some of the prepper stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
So, you know those old square Brita filters that you'd slide into your fridge and they had like a little spigot on the bottom?
yes.
If you take the like internal chamber out of that and you put it on top of the Brita filter,
Mm-hmm.
the Brita filter, like, because they're kind of rectangular with the round part that sticks down, that'll stick down into there's a little port in the top hole of the lid, and you can just turn it into an aquaponics grow bed, and then you've got a 1 gallon fish tank beneath it. And so I used to go get those on at like Goodwill and stuff because for whatever reason that model I think they just discontinued that size of filter replacement or something. And so I got like 5 or 6 of those and had them all up with fathead minnows in them. And shortly after that, I got involved with a local fish store, and I got no clue what happened to that guy. The fish store closed at some point when that was in 2015 when the fish store closed. And I'd already graduated at that point, but I was volunteering with him for a while. And he was teaching me how to like take muck guppies and turn them into various strains.
Yeah.
And that was really cool because I don't know, it felt like he really took me under his wing. And he is one of those people that, like Matt, had like 8 different projects on his hands. And or you kind of see Dan's Fishes the same way, where they've got like a couple different online like fish store type things going on, tools that they're trying to provide for the community, another project or two. And in this case, he was trying to set up a program for everybody to like monitor their fish tanks effectively
Okay.
and share whatever, like a lot of the social media type stuff that didn't exist at the time for fish keepers. But he has had a number. I suspect one of the things that happened was he might have made one of his back problems worse, because I know he had a back surgery that put him on a problem for a while. I just, at some point the fish store disappeared and he never answered any of my emails. And then like the fish store was just gone one day. So no clue what happened there. And that's kind of sad because I don't know, I owe a lot to him. But yeah, I had a old swing set, big fort thing in the backyard of the house that I grew up in. And we put like corrugated plastic panels on the sides of it and spray foam insulated any gaps, and that's where I started doing the guppy breeding, was inside of that, like a greenhouse.
Okay.
Which was, it was cheap, but it was not an ideal way to, you gotta crouch to kind of walk around back there. Swing set.
Well, if Dean could breed fish in the toilet, I don't see why he couldn't do it in the fort outside.
That's true.
So that's when you start taking, I guess, the hobby a little bit more seriously, when you start getting into that. And have you constantly been doing it since then, or have you taken
No.
breaks in between?
So shortly after I got set up with this like greenhouse room, and the second story was set up with a turtle pond in that. And when I say turtle pond, I mean I had two 75-gallon tanks, and 65-gallon tank is the same length but not the same height.
Yeah.
And I had them all sandwiched together because the braces were broken. So I had built a large frame to support them, and then the inner walls were pressing against each other, so there's nowhere for them to flex to. And then I had like a bridge that went across all three with little ramps for the turtles to get in and out of those tanks. And I was really proud of that setup, and B, because all of those tanks had to be like plumbed to the same filter, and the filter and all of that was on the same heater system. When the thermostat got exposed to the cold winter night air, my turtles boiled, and all of them boiled at the same time because it was all connected on the same system. So I lost the whole greenhouse and all of that in one night. And it was really rough. I had rescued, so at that point in time, I wasn't spending money on fish. I'd rescued a couple Oscars. I had after that happened, I had an Oscar inside and I had an axolotl inside, and every other fish that I had, and all my, I'd rescued a few turtles. And when you're going to pick up free fish tanks, a lot of times it's pick up a free fish tank and everything in it. And so I had a variety of fish and a lot of guppies and things that I'd been working on, and I lost them all. And it was a really heavy blow. And one of the turtles that I was keeping at that point in time was, it was a Western painted turtle, and they're very personable and they're cute. Let me look up. And the bottom of them looks really cool.
Is that why they call them painted? Because
Yeah.
of the designs on the bottoms?
Yeah, and the top was kind of cool too, but the top is more regular turtle looking. But they're native in my area. And so it was really sad for me to, it's one thing, there's a million invasive red-eared sliders and yellow belly sliders and things out there, right? And those in my area, we're supposed to kill them or not, or surrender them to animal control. We're not supposed to keep them as pets. If you find one or if you rescue one as a pet, you're not supposed to keep it, right? So it was one thing for those to have ended up passing away, but it was another thing entirely for, again, like a native turtle that was raised in captivity and couldn't ever be rehabilitated, to then die in my care when it still had another good 40 years left.
Yeah.
Like, turtles live a long time.
Oh yeah.
So that was
There
a really heavy blow for me.
somebody
It's
had
like,
one mention that those are the generational gifts. You know, you pass it on from generation to generation.
yeah. No, I respect everybody that wants to keep turtles or parrots or anything like that, but I don't think I'll ever own another critter that has that long of a lifespan, because I can't imagine if I passed away having to, like, as a family, having to make the decision of like, oh, who's gonna take care of his parrot? Like, like that's just no fun. It's a
Yeah.
tough situation to put your family in.
Yeah. Well, you know, fish, it's, you know, you always find somebody willing to take fish.
Yeah.
It's not unless they're big, what is plecos, you know, the common plecos. Then it gets a little bit harder to get rid of. But
Yeah, I have one of those
even
too.
they'll find a pond that some, you know, they'll end up in.
Yeah.
But so I'm gathering from all of this that you're telling me that you've always been pretty handy with your hands, and you like to build and tinker with stuff.
Yeah.
So that makes perfect sense, because one of the things, again, when I was talking earlier, that I find a lot of commonalities between you and I is the fact that you like to do a lot of DIY projects, and
Yeah,
that's
I
one of
mean,
the
it's
one of the
fun, but
things
it's also
that
like it's free content. You know, if you I'm not saying like, oh, I'm gonna film everything I do. I don't. And
yeah,
I hate editing stuff, so I don't really have a lot of tools to make it easy to edit stuff. So, you know, I'm not saying that I'm gonna video every single project that I do or anything like that, but it's free content. If you can turn on a live stream while you fiddle with whatever thing with your hands and get some bowl looking the way that you want it to, do it.
yeah, because I like how you take a lot of you're always tinkering with the fact you're trying to create your own filtration systems, or you know, you're piecing together different things to try to create a different water pump, or stuff like that, which, you know, it's kind of like what I do. And it's interesting because a lot of the times that stuff ends up failing, or you don't. And people have a misconception that people that do DIY is because they're trying to do it on the cheap. Half the time it costs you more money
Yeah.
than if you actually go buy a product that's already done with. I think with DIY is that your ability to be able to customize it to your needs, because a lot of the times you can't find something that is out in the market that suits exactly what you're trying to accomplish. And I think a lot of people, when they hear, oh, DIY, oh yeah, he's just trying to be cheap. No, it's not necessarily that. I mean, there is some of it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, I mean, like, so there are cheaper ways to do the things that we do, and there are more expensive ways to do the things that we do. And if you really wanted to spend the money, anything that you DIY could be done the expensive way, and you could hire a professional to do it themselves. Uh, you know, like one of the things that you're saying, I was like fitting. I really like to put different, like, kind of plug and play parts together,
Hmm.
because, like, yeah, if I had a lathe, I could turn, or a 3D printer, I could turn my own connections, or I could run down to the hardware store and find the right part to fit this to that. But if I can just sand it a little bit and it'll fit, I would much rather be able to do that and have it all be like the Aquion nano sized siphon,
Hmm.
gravel vac thing, is the same size tube as the under gravel filter tube, right? And that's one of those things that you got to rip there's like a flap in the gravel vac to keep,
Yeah.
like, to make it easy for you to start a siphon, I guess. You got to rip that out with a pair of pliers, because otherwise you won't be able to, it won't work the way you want it to. But if you want to be able to use your under gravel filter tube and just suck all the gunk out from under there, or sometimes it's fun to put one on either side of your undergravel and flush water from one end out the other, and then you can jet all the gunk that's in your undergravel filter
But do
underneath
you
the
really
plate.
find a lot of stuff? Because you know,
Well, I run dirted tanks, man.
no, well, so do I, and I
Okay.
run them on undergravel filters, and I don't find that there is that much um debris or dirt on the undergravel filters that I'm running on. The ones that the DIY ones, they're really kind of intended to be that way because the way I drilled the holes was I knew eventually dirt was going to get down in there, so it was just it's really it was that's and I did that because I was trying to do that anoxic filter that Dr. Novak talks about. So
Yeah,
I
you were
wasn't
doing the
really
plenums for a while there.
yeah. And I think that's when I kind of started paying attention to what you were doing because I think you and I started doing plenums around the same time, and there wasn't a whole lot of people doing them.
I don't think I've actually tried a plenum. I do really high flow stuff.
Okay,
I'm all about anaerobic filtration,
yeah,
which is, I think, what is kind of funny because every time I talk to people about undergravel filters or anything, they think I'm going to go into the anoxic whatever.
yeah,
And I think that's one of the things that turns people off from undergravel filters is that people think that they're higher maintenance than they are, and people think that they're gonna end up with an anaerobic tank that has stinky pockets of hydrogen sulfide gas and this coming out, and like maybe if you like, it can happen. Don't get me wrong. I've set up tanks wrong before where like there wasn't enough flow through and
yeah,
bubbles like big gas bubbles were forming in the substrate. And it was stinky and sulfurous smelling, and I'm assuming that's hydrogen sulfide.
yeah. But
Um,
I don't see that happening on undergravel filters because you got the lift tubes. So the gas is going to find the passive least resistance. So you already have an opening that's exposing it to atmosphere.
I
So
was finding that happening specifically with well, there was a couple things that happened that led
okay,
to that happening in that tank. One of them was my underground, like my lift tube got sand in it.
oh, okay,
So it got like clogged a little bit.
yeah.
And the other big one was that I had like 10 plus inches of substrate in that tank.
Oh, okay. So you actually had pockets in between the layers, not necessarily from the bottom.
Yeah, I had pockets forming, and I was having to like stab skewers into the substrate to relieve this air because otherwise, because I would watch it happen on occasion, and if I didn't relieve it like daily, then the bubbles that would come up were really big and a lot stinkier, and I wasn't super stoked about that. It was only a couple weeks that this was going on before
Yeah.
I really cleaned out I had to stick a turkey baster down in there and squirt all the sand out of the upflow tube.
No.
And I had to dig like 4 inches of substrate out of that tank too.
No. Okay.
But yeah, I do a lot of reverse flow under gravel. So I'm
Mm.
pumping the oxygenated water from the bottom up through the top. And there are arguments to be made for that not being the best for the fish because by the time the water reaches the fish, it could theoretically be depleted of oxygen. I don't think that's actually going to be the case.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing though. What I've always said this, what I've discovered, and I think you're kind of like me, where if somebody challenges you or says you can't do it, you're gonna go out and try it.
It's problematic. I got like oppositional defiance disorder or something.
Yeah, and I've always gotten that vibe from you. That's one of the reasons why I was like, yeah, he kind of reminds me of me a little bit. Um, and I've done that. I've taken just about every single type of filtration system or tanking method within the hobby because I'm more of a let me do it, let me find out for myself if it's true or not, and then I'll be the judge of whether it works or not.
Well,
And
and also
so
like what is true about it? Why is it true? What can we learn from it? Can
yeah,
we apply that to other things? Do lessons we've learned from other forms of filtration or in other industries entirely apply? Or is this actually like sometimes people will say something and they'll be like, we tried that in the 80s, and they're not wrong. They did try that in the 80s. And in the 80s, it didn't work. It's no longer the 80s. We have different technology. We have different knowledge. We have better access to, like, purple non-sulfuric bacteria, for example, was not something that was, you couldn't buy that shipped to your home with 2-day shipping, you know what I mean, living in the 80s. You couldn't. It didn't exist. You had to go find a source of purple non-sulfuric bacteria and build yourself a Winogradsky column and culture it and then insert that into your tank. And like nobody was doing that. The only people that were doing that were, you know, researchers in aquaculturing corals. And that's why we have it now.
Yeah, no, but you know, it's just I've gotten to the point now where there isn't a system that's out there that doesn't work. You know, it's just
Yeah.
it depends. I think really what it boils down to is what you're trying to accomplish. That there might be different systems that are more applicable for your outcome. And that's all it is. I don't understand why people get so married to a certain style or a certain brand or
Yeah.
it's just you know it's just you can do all of this a million different ways and it's if you're keeping the basics within check, it's going to work. You know, so that's kind of where I'm kind of out with that. I always find it so interesting when people start going at each other because you know you should do this method and this is the only method that works, and it's like, well,
sometimes that's brand building or whatever too, where it's like manufactured outrage, but a lot of times it just feels like I don't know, like you're saying, we get too married to the concept, or you know how people will get offended if you insult their brand of car.
Yeah, the whole Chevy Ford thing.
Yeah, you know, like it's a method of getting from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Really, that's what it boils down to.
Yeah, yeah, it's just there's just different ways to do things. It's just whatever you choose to do. And if it works for you, you know, keep doing it. I mean, it doesn't matter as long as your fish are happy and they're not.
Yeah, just be willing to try new things, especially when it comes to like new fish. You know, if I've never kept geos before, right? Like an earth eater of any kind.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, when people are telling me that you can't use an undergravel plate or you can't use an undergravel plate with geos. Sorry, I just read that. They're right. They're not wrong. Like, there's probably not a feasible way for me to set up an undergravel filter with geophagus. I get it. The way that they're going to move the sand around and everything, like, it's not going to work out well. That's fine.
Well, but you can.
Have you done it?
I saw somebody do it because I was asking about that. And what they did was they have the undergravel filter plate, but on top of it, they put light diffuser. So what ends up happening is the geophagus is going to dig up to the light diffuser, but you still have about an inch of gravel in between the little squares that is still working as an undergravel filter.
I'm also of the opinion, no, I guess you could put like landscape cloth beneath the light diffuser.
Yeah, but at that point, you're going to allow the geophagus to get all the way to the surface of that plate, and then it kind of
no. If you have the light diffuser, but I was thinking you could put like weed blocker.
Oh yeah.
Because don't geos want sand to sift through it?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And the workaround that was because what's going to happen? They're going to dig until they hit the bottom.
Yeah.
So if all you have is an undergravel filter, well, obviously they're going to go all the way down to the surface of that undergravel filter. And now what happens is it exposes the grates and you don't have any substrate over it. So it's just kind of like
it's just water flow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just water flow. But what they did was they put the light diffuser. What they put the undergravel filter. They put a little bit of substrate, whatever they were using, and on top of that substrate is where they lay down the light diffuser. So no matter how much the geophagics dug, they were only going to reach down to the light diffuser. So you still had about 2 inches, roughly, of substrate working under the undergravel filter. Granted, you're going to have a thick uh,
Yeah, you're gonna have a
substrate.
big sand cap, but
But if you wanted to use, the whole argument was you can use an undergravel filter
yeah, you
with
just have to set
with
it up
soil
with
movers,
that
and
in
that's
mind.
with convicts. It's with all these cichlids that like to nest. Even Oscars, because Oscars will move substrate to try to.
Yeah.
So that was the whole thing. It was like where there's a way, there's a will. Where there's a will, there's a way. And so it was kind of like, yeah, you can use. There isn't an application. I guess there really isn't an application where you wouldn't be able to use an undergravel filter. It's just how much work are you willing to do to continue to use an undergravel filter?
In my opinion, tanks that aren't like, so it costs what, $20 if you pay full price for a set of undergravel plates.
Yeah.
Can you find another filter that provides as much media, as much
Well,
surface area for $20 as an undergravel filter?
maybe a Manton filter.
Yeah, maybe a Manton filter. You might be able to, like, Bangford's Buckwise, that might be pretty close. That's a good,
that's
good one. But I don't know. You can hook your canister filter. I have a surface skim, like on my 20 long over here.
Yeah.
I have a surface skimmer on one side and a power head on the other, and an undergravel filter. And the surface skimmer is connected to the undergravel filter tube, and the water goes under, and it works like a strain tank. And it's not even really using the undergravel, like the substrate, that much, but it's there, and it is percolating through a little bit. And that's free biomedia. And anytime I replace my media in the surface skimmer, I don't have to worry, because there's still oxygenated water flowing through the other. Like, I can take out all the filter floss and throw it away, and I'm not crashing my cycle.
Yeah.
Because it's not all of the media. And that's same, you could replace all of your exactly, Fathom.
I know. I saw that. He's being a smartass.
Yeah, well, but
I have seen where they do put.
Has a combo Manton filter undergravel thing that he's working on, and it makes a lot of sense when I look at the water flow diagrams.
Yeah, the one that I have seen lately is where they'll add like either bio balls or bio rings on the bottom of a undergravel filter to provide extra. That's the only one that's been kind of relatively new to me that I wasn't aware of that you could do with an undergravel filter. But it makes sense.
Yeah. Those sorry, I accidentally locked the phone. Those, what do you call them? Bioactive substrate?
Yeah.
Like settings, camera.
What's that? I'm trying to remember the name of the brand, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's already got seated. Oh, there you go. You did exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but this isn't an aquarium.
No, I know. I did that in a pickle jar. No, chicharron jar.
Yeah. And you use, I use the Leica mostly as, you can tell even the sand's still kind of flowing past it. Just gonna sit back down.
Yeah, but you don't even have a lift tube on that, huh?
No, that one's reverse as well. I have a pump that's.
Oh, you do have a pump in there. Oh, okay.
The top down into the
I did mine, and I didn't put anything in there. It was just natural water movement through the system, and it worked fine. The only thing is, it wasn't very aesthetic, so I ended up putting them in the bowls, the 3-gallon bowls. I basically took that same concept and put them up in those and scaped them, just because, I always have to tinker with putting plants in aquariums. But yeah, I had one that was similarly set up to that, but it's I use that bottom section as additional biological filtration. Really, that's the filtration. They call it a filterless system, but there's no such thing.
Yeah,
because you are always going to have biological filtration.
Yeah, there might not be an external filter or there might not be a power filter, but
Yeah.
something's going on.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the. Have you heard people talk about how hydros or what do we call it? Aqua soil has the anoxic filtration built in.
Yeah, I just recently heard that. Yes.
Um, is it's such a crazy concept. Like Leca and hydrogen are considered aerobic bacteria sources when used as the manufacturer instructs,
Hmm.
which is with varying water levels where it's constantly exposed to the air and it's flood and drain, right?
Yeah.
When it's fully saturated like that, is it so crazy to imagine that the pores inside of that expanded clay ball are going to house anaerobic and anoxic bacteria within them as opposed to aerobic? Because it's not going to get the same water flow and oxygen that it would if it was being like evacuated and then filled with air on the regular.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to work necessarily as good as what isn't Fathom testing BioRock right now.
Yeah.
And
He's
then
one
there's
of him and Maul.
there's those ones that people were upset was leaching aluminum into the water or something. I think that might have been Brightwell. But there's a whole bunch of denitrification, like Matrix. Seachem Matrix is denitrifying too. And it's like just weird pebbles. What's special about those that makes them denitrify? Like, do they have nutrients in them that the denitrifying bacteria eat or anything like that? Are they seeded?
No,
Because I haven't
I don't
seen.
even think it's that. I think it's just the fact that they're very porous.
They're very
And
porous and they have a restricted amount of water flow.
yes.
And those two things are things we can do. We don't need a special rock.
Yep.
It might be slightly better. It might be a 10% gain, for your bacteria colony or something like that. But like, I got a bag of hydrogen. That's what I'm imagining is going on in that system. I don't know, and I don't really have an accurate way to measure it.
Yeah.
Like the API test kit is only so good.
Yeah, you see, that's a whole other subject that I could get into, but these are just guides to let you know what's kind of going in there. They're not. I don't know why people get so hung up on it has to be the liquid type or it has to be the test strip.
Yep.
You're just getting a quick reference as to what's going on. None of those are. If you want to get real accurate, you got to go into a lab room, and you're using different equipment to be able to get precise measurements. These are just ballpark figures. It says the same thing with, oh yeah, here's Fathom. He's chiming in on the whole
Yeah.
biomedia stuff.
I mean, that was my thought process. When I was doing it, I was like, when this is either it's going to be a really porous aerobic bacteria source, which, oh no, what a shame. I have aerobic bacteria in my substrate. Like, either it's a win or it's a win.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why I use lava rock for that purpose. I've been using that for a long time.
Yeah. And if you have
It's
access to it,
yeah, it's inexpensive. I'm sorry, I'm a cheapskate when it comes to all that stuff. I'm gonna try to save myself as much money as possible. That's why I don't think you'll ever see a high end piece of equipment in my fish room unless it was given to me. You know,
yeah.
but I'm not gonna go out and buy that stuff because I don't need to.
No, you're gonna go find it in a bin of $5
the Goodwill.
Facebook Marketplace deal.
No, Facebook Marketplace deals are expensive. They want to recuperate what they paid at store value. At least up here in this area, you find 10-gallon aquariums that they want $50 for them, and I'm like, you're never. Those are giveaways. You can't sell a 10-gallon aquarium to save your life. If anything, you'll get $5. That's the most I'm gonna ever pay for a 10-gallon aquarium. It will be $5 if I pay for anything, but more than likely I'll pick it up for free. And but that's why I like going to like the Goodwill stores down here because usually that's where you really find some really good deals on some equipment, and half the time they don't even know what it is, so it's like in the dollar bin, and you're like,
Yeah, they're
what
like, this is
the?
a hunk of plastic, and you're like,
Yep.
that has a motor in it.
Yeah, that's what I pick up a lot of under gravel filters at the Goodwill,
Yeah.
and they're usually like 50 cents for the plates. And I'm not so concerned about the lift tubes because you could find something that'll work as a lift tube.
Yeah.
And most of the stuff when I do use them, it is for an anoxic filter, so I don't need a lot of water movement. So there's that with that. But yeah, no. I hate to cut this short because I got to get ready for work. But
No, you're good, man.
and
We could
and I
talk all
know
day.
I know exactly. That's the feeling I'm getting that this conversation could go on for hours. And also, Rico's been kind enough to allow me to go a
Yeah,
little
he
bit
gave us an
longer, and
extra
he's kind of
35 minutes.
yeah,
So,
he's kind of been here. One, because he wanted to be here, and the other thing is because he's actually being a good friend, and I appreciate that. But with that being said, I just want to say thank you to everybody that joined us this morning. I know this is an extremely early stream for me, and I know it was a lot earlier for Coral. And
yeah.
I know he was laid up last night. I was going to tell you, hey, go to bed when you were
I did.
on the
I
June's
saw you
live
in the
stream.
chat, and I just ended the stream not long after that. I was like, hey, and then I was like, I gotta go to bed.
Yeah, I saw you were on there with Jude. I was kind of lurking a little bit last night before going to bed when I was going to type that in, and I go, what am I doing? I need to go to bed too because I'm going to be up just as early as Coral.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
but yeah, with that being said, I want to thank everybody that took time out this morning, and I just want to say thank you for the constant support. Again, every time I've been doing this, I just see this to amaze me how much people are willing to come in here and hang out with us. Looks like I've had 55, which is obviously the most
Rico
I've ever
said
had.
Rico said we gotta keep going.
I know because he's been wanting to have somebody else do stuff in the morning because he's been the only one right now,
Yeah.
and it's just I would love to. I'm really a morning
You go
person
work,
to
man.
be. Yeah, I would really love to, but because I'm a morning person. I like early in the morning stuff. But the problem is, my schedule. But it's not a problem because it allows me to be able to connect with people like you at a time that most people wouldn't be able to be available. And having that flexibility in my schedule is one of the things that I really enjoyed because it allows me, like if, for example, if I wanted to interview, um, who's here from Mark from Australia,
Yeah.
it allows me to be able to do it during the daytime instead of him having to stay up late at night. Um, and to be here in the morning, I could do the opposite. I could go later on in the evening and it'll be the day for them. So, and it opens up that it broadens my availability of people that I could invite to come on and be able to stream with because I do have that flexibility. And that's one of the things that I really, really enjoy about what I've been doing. And I guess on that subject for somebody was asking me, what do you plan to do for 2024? Um, more of this. This is really what I've found that I really enjoy this. Um, I really like meeting people. I guess I'm a people person. I don't shy away from people. I like talking to people. I like getting to know people. That's one of the things that I've really, really have found about the community that I enjoy is being able to connect with everybody.
Yeah.
And it's I'm really finding a lot of joy out of this. So I hopefully this is something that I continue to do um, through the remainder of whatever time I have left doing this hobby. And eventually I'll do some videos, but I think I'm taking a page from you. That's all you do is live streams. You got a couple of videos that you've only done, but most of your stuff is all live streams.
Yeah, no, I have one live stream that I need to edit because I was really stupid and I had my like my address on full like
Oh,
centered in the camera for like 45 full seconds. Because I was like, opening the box. And the camera was pointed right at the box.
yeah.
So I got to edit that and get that out, and so I can re-upload it. But I hate like listening to my own voice, and I hate like feeling stupid, struggling with editing software. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It feels like it should be easier than it is. And then you also watch people like they'll show you on some TikTok or something. They're like, it's so easy. And then you're like,
Well, it is if you edit like I do, which all it is I put a intro and an outro, and that's it.
yeah,
That's as far as my editing goes. I know the very first videos I was trying to edit all the ums and all that, and I said, "Oh, the hell with this! It's gonna take me forever."
it
So now
does.
it's
It
just
does. And then if you like get the cut, I remember I was watching this one video and it was really clear somebody was working really hard on their editing, but they did something where every jump cut had a black screen, like a flash of black in between, and they kept cutting their thing after the and they were licking their lips. They would be like, they would nervously lick their lips and they'd be like, and then it would cut and have a black screen. And I was like, you're trying so hard, dude, but this video is worse because of your editing. I wouldn't have noticed you licking your lips if it hadn't been for those really jarring.
yeah.
And then like 3 weeks happened and he got better at his editing. And now he's got 50 some thousand subscribers or something. So good job working hard and getting better at your editing. I don't have it in me.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the other thing is people are always, well, some people get curious. What's your plan? What are you trying to do? Or, because they lie. Well, they don't believe, I guess a lot of people don't believe me that when I tell them I don't really have an objective, I don't have a goal. I'm not, this is another thing that we share in common. I don't really care for the growth of the channel. And I don't mean that like I don't care, but I'm not concerned at how quickly or how slowly the channel develops. Because in my mind, the whole reason that I even got started on YouTube was because I'm looking at down the road, 10 years, 15 years down the road, where I want to be, if once I retire, and this has always been my plan. By the time I retire, and hopefully by then I've learned how to breed a couple of species of fish.
Yeah.
And what I want me to keep me entertained after retirement is being able to do the fish breeding and being able to sell them and do that kind of stuff, but not as a sole source of revenue or income,
But
but
like as a
more
way
as
to
a
keep busy.
keep me busy, keep me doing something, because I've seen too many fellow coworkers that retire, they get they stop doing, they just sit in front of the TV and they don't last very long. And
No.
I'm not in a hurry to leave Earth yet. I want to be able to hang out and enjoy my retirement. And I
You
feel
don't want to
that
be one of those. You ever meet like you have a retired neighbor who spends all day washing different parts of their house and stuff like that because they don't have anything to do with their time, and they're like,
yeah,
"Yeah, I'm gonna wash out the trash can, and then I'm gonna wash my driveway, and then and you're like, how many things? Like you washed the trash can yesterday, bro."
well, they like to have a nice smelling trash can. I can understand that though, because there's nothing worse out here in the heat
The
to coming
the
up
wheelie bins.
to going up to the opening up the lid on your roller bin
Oh
and
yeah,
getting that woof of just decomposing
and the
matter.
like
It's
flies
just,
come out.
ugh. So I can understand washing. I'm not gonna do it on a daily basis, maybe
No,
like your
like
neighbor,
yeah, sure.
but I'm
Maybe you
taking
rinse it
that
out, but
the power washer to it at least once a month. At least once a month. Get some of that funk out of there.
yeah.
But well, anyways, we're carrying on. I know we could do this all day long, but like I said, I want to thank everybody for being here. And Coral, thank you so much. I know we were going kind of back and forth and trying to find the right time slot because of your work schedule. Luckily, we were able to do it. Unfortunately, I would have wished we would have had more time, but
No worries. We can do
but
a
that
volume 2 someday.
yeah, and that's that's exactly what I was going to say. I'd love to have you back on at sometime when we can coincide again and can pick up where we left off, because I know there's so much more that we could talk about. But with that, I want to say thank you guys. Happy New Year's to all of you that I don't get to see on a live stream or anything like that. I don't think I have anybody else scheduled. I know everybody else that is pending are wanting to do it after the holidays, which is perfectly understandable. And I know the last time I had with Fernando, I had said I wasn't doing anything towards the end of the year because that was kind of the impression that I had. But fortunately, Koro was able to find a day that it worked out. So, but I really do think, as far as doing a live stream with the guest on my channel, this is probably the last one for the year. And I want to say that it's been a wonderful 2 years. I know December 2nd was my second year on YouTube, and I want to take this time to thank everybody who has supported me from the beginning till now. And hopefully they continue to support me throughout, wherever this goes. And with that said, I want to wish you all a happy New Year's and a prosperous 2024. So thank you guys, and you guys take care.
Thank you.